All right, well, hello, class. So today we will be discussing DNA and the human genome. This is, of course, a part of LS3.A, or the inheritance of traits. Now, as part of the inheritance of traits, we have to consider that there's upwards of two parts. One is genes, and the other is DNA. So we will be focusing on DNA today. Now, make sure you get out your notebooks and write down what I'm about to say, because we will be discussing this further in class tomorrow. So let's start off with what is DNA. So the basic way to explain what DNA is that it is us, or it's what makes us who we are. It's the building blocks of what makes us humans. And each strand contains the genetic code of what we as people are. Now, there are various different pieces of DNA. That's not just human DNA, but there's also lizard DNA, rhino DNA, elephant DNA. There's DNA for all sorts of different animals. Now, one example that I would like to say is that if you've ever seen a crime documentary before, the police always look for the DNA of the culprit, because they can study it, analyze it, and look at it from there. Because it gives us the genetic makeup of who we are. And each one is different to us. So that's just what DNA is. Then we're going to move on to what is the human genome. What is it made of? Excuse me. So as you can see, there are many different things that kind of make up the human genome as it is. And there's still a part of it that's unclassified, and people are still looking into that. We're still learning about it. We're still learning what makes the human genome tick. And we're also learning about how DNA and the human genome kind of fit together like a glove. Now I'm going to give you an example, and I'm going to use this box of cereal. I'm going to take out a piece of the cereal. Okay, if I can get it. This little piece of cereal is going to represent DNA, or part of the human genome. Now, I'm going to eat it. I've just eaten it. That is no longer part of the genome. So what does that mean? Well, one of the things it could lead to is what is known as a mutation. Now write this down, because the mutations are what we're going to be discussing in the following days. As some examples, what happens when parts go missing? As I just showed you, one of those parts went missing. That little piece that I showed you is no longer a part of this genome. And what happens? We get what is known as mutations. Now, as you can see in the pictures here, what happens when the parts go missing? We get what I said as mutations. So for humans, maybe the eye doesn't form correctly. Maybe like a hand or some fingers forms on your shoulder. Maybe you get an extra ear attached to your head. Those are more of extreme cases of mutations, but it's still possible. I'm going to show you an example of one that isn't as extreme, but it's still considered a mutation because it's so different. So here we have an albino alligator, or crocodile, I'm not sure. So what happens here is that the alligator, or crocodile, is suffering from what is known as albinoism, which means that its skin is completely white and its eyes are red. Now, in nature, a very, very bright white creature like this would not survive at all, but it's in an enclosure, so it can survive. This is what is known as a genetic mutation. Instead of being the green and dull olive drab color that a crocodile or alligator usually is, it's pure white. So at any time, it essentially could have been killed in the wild because it was so bright and saying, "I'm over here, come eat me." That's what this mutation can do. Now, as an example, we have the human genome here, and that part that was missing. Instead of us looking like this, we could instead look like this. Okay? The difference is there. So just that one piece can lead to vast changes in our makeup and how we look and how we act. Just that tiny piece compared to what other things could look like. That's very interesting to consider. All right, class. Now, this miniature lesson's over for the day. Make sure that the notes that you've taken, even though it was very quick, are written down. We will be discussing this within the next few days and going into genetic mutations and how they can affect certain populations of people or even animals. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, and I will see you tomorrow in class. Thanks again.